We love to discuss new things, revisit old ones, and spark a bit of lively discussion to keep things interesting. Greetings of the hour to all. Welcome to another interesting session of EduCon, Educational Conversations. Having a deep conversation with someone who has a brilliant mind and a beautiful soul is always invigorating. We are honored to have with us Ms. Azma Zaidi to speak on socio-emotional development at the ECCE and foundation stage. Ms. Zaidi is an educator, school leader, teacher trainer, and an author. Her work in the field of education, with special focus on the pre-primary and primary years, is illustrious. Her program, Let's Read, is widely used in India to promote literacy. She believes in the right to education for every child, and her preference to work in areas that have minimum exposure is commendable. Founder author of literacy program Let's Read, she has also launched an Android app for online phonic teacher training, a certificate course on how to teach English in early years with emphasis on reading. She has also developed a curriculum called Kirdar for schools. This program focuses on teaching character development, virtues, and values through interactive, engaging sessions. Azma Zaidi is the territory head of Telangana and Jammu and Kashmir for ECCE, Early Childhood Education, and APER, Association of Pre-Primary Education and Research. Before we begin, a quick reminder to all to please keep yourself on mute. We will open the floor for question and answers. You may unmute yourself then. In the meantime, if any question comes across, please use the chat box to put your questions across. I request Mr. Yogita Sharma, Director, Manav Rachna International Schools, to welcome Ms. Zaidi to MRIS EduCon. Over to you, ma'am. Ma'am, unmute yourself. Ma'am, please unmute yourself.
अब करो ना. Yes, Surbhi, thank you, Surbhi. Good evening, everyone. Surbhi, it was not allowing me to unmute myself, so sorry for that. So, lot of welcome to Azma Zaidi, and an educationist who has been working in this area of early years and the foundation stage. Just a minute, Surbhi, it's echoing. Yes. So Azma Zaidi, ma'am, it's great to have you here because you are one who has been always talking about early years and you thinking, feeling, preparing, researching, coming out with new solutions as to how these children in the early years learn. And we have a good group of I think more than 177 teachers here who are teaching this age group of early years and foundation stage. Again, a very enthusiastic group of teachers, very progressive teachers who are day in and day out looking into how these young children learn, how to have a personal connect with them, how to have their learning journey prepared that each one of them who comes to us in 8 schools of Manav Rachna in this age group, his journey is taken forward. And I think this particular group of teachers who are teaching early years and foundation stage are a very, very responsible and responsive group of teachers. Because when I talk about this topic that we are going to discuss today, socio-emotional, I think it is a great responsibility on these teachers because the kind of world we need tomorrow, the healthy world, the world that has emotional well-being in place, social well-being in place, a positive society being formed, good relationships being created, and people thinking about each other, people having a lot of respect for each other, for coexistence, having patience, having adaptability, flexibility, all those qualities that we associate are the ones developed in this age group. So the kind of world we have tomorrow depends on these teachers, how they deal with the young children coming to us. With this socio-emotional, and I would expect from you not only discussing one aspect, everything that you would like to share regarding early years education, how the children learn, and what new researches have been into this area, what you would like to put forward, because we in Manavrachna, for the last, I think 14, 15 years, we are into education. We have always been looking at the progressive way, how we can reach each child, how we can see that each child who's interested to us, who comes to the school of Manavrachna, has his learning journey as per his requirement, as per whatever we see in this child. So we are able to reach everyone, and we are able to see that every child is moving forward each day that he is with us. So we are not very conventional in an approach that we focus on reading, writing, and this only. We are on to creating learning experiences for our children, where everybody finds a way to learn and everybody moves forward with a lot of support from the parents. So we have formed a very positive learning community with the children, parents, teachers. But at the same time, all that we do in Manavrachna, we have never had any kind of books. I mean, your reading program, I'm really impressed with that you have brought it in place as to how should children be reading, and language plays such an important role in the development of these children, besides socio-emotional development, which comes through relationships being formed, children accepting themselves as they are, feeling good in the company of others. So I think all this will be listening from you. These teachers have been dealing with it day in, day out. But then looking at the kind of and the body of work that you are doing, and the, you can say, we say lifelong and life wide learning. So you have a wide range of your work. So definitely more experiences on your plate, more children you have seen, more teachers you have talked to. So we'd like you to share with us about this particular topic and all experiences that you feel should become part of our experiences also. So thank you so much for being here. And I once again welcome you and welcome all the teachers who have joined for this particular session, and look forward to a very interactive and very positive and a very good learning session for each one of us. So I put it across to Azma ma'am, to you to start your session. Thank you very much, Surbhi.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Good evening, everybody. And thank you, ma'am,
Yes.
for that extremely elaborate introduction. And I hope I'm able to live up to everybody's expectations of learning today. I do have a lot to share. I hope 2 hours is going to do justice to the time that I have for sharing with everybody. Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here. I have always wanted to reach a different crowd, and this seems to be an excellent crowd. So I hope I'm able to learn from you. You are able to learn from me. We're
Sure.
already, I think, 10 minutes behind schedule, 10, 15 minutes. So I will start with no further wait, and I will jump straight into the topic. So today we are going to talk about social and emotional learning. And unfortunately, in the past 2 days, I've had a personal tragedy at home, and I wasn't able to make PPTs and do it the way I usually do. So you'll have to make do with my face. And just by listening to me. I have a few diagrams that I cannot, just talk about, that I would like to share. But apart from that, I hope you don't get bored listening just to me. I promise next time it's going to be better. But these past 3 days have been really crazy and it was just unavoidable. Anyway, so we are going to talk about social and emotional development in children, and especially in early years. I'd like to begin by saying that um, 0 to 6 years is a very, very important, very crucial, precious time for children in all aspects, whether it is holistically, whether it is social development, emotional development, linguistic development, physical development, all kinds of spheres, all kinds of forces are actually working in this space in the first 6 years of life. And I think I will not be wrong and I will not exaggerate if I say that the entire life of a child, the entire future of the child depends on the first 6 years that the child has gone through or has experienced. So what you are today, what I am today, what you are today, what XYZ is today is definitely a reflection of how their childhood has been and what kind of experiences they have had in their childhood, especially in the first 6 years of life, which we don't tend to remember. We tend to remember things that have happened after 6-7 years, but we don't tend to remember things which have happened before 6 years. Of course, it is not, I will not say that it's impossible.
Asma, your audio is not very clear. If we can do something to that.
Sorry?
Audio is not very clear. If we can do something to that. Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, it's better. Yeah.
Or is it echoing?
There is an echo.
It is. Yeah.
Is it better now?
Yes.
Are you able to hear?
Yes.
Thumbs up?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So definitely in the first 6 years of life, it's where a lot of things happen. And if we have turned out to be sane, sound adults, then we have a lot of credit to give our parents and grandparents and the people that we grew up with. Now, again, here I will put 2-3 things into perspective. And I hope that you have had the opportunity to reflect. We're going to talk about a lot of things today, or rather, I wish it was a discussion where I could speak to you, but because it is online, it is going to be one-way communication. But feel free to put your things on chat, and maybe somebody in the admin can tell me what people's comments are. So I was saying that in these first 6 years of life, everything that you are depends on that. And I will not say that our parents and our grandparents were extremely wise and extremely, learned to make us turn out to be who we are. I will take the risk of saying that we turned out to be the people that we are because of circumstances and the environment that we were brought up in. Now here, I would like to, by the way, ma'am, I'm sorry, I should have asked this in before. Is everybody comfortable with English? Or I usually tend to switch between English and Hindi for clarity for everybody.
Everybody is comfortable in English. Yeah, you can carry on.
English is fine?
Yes, please.
All right, okay. So I will take the risk of saying that our grandparents and parents did not have so much wisdom, did not understand how all about child development and child raising. They were also first-time parents with their first child. They have also made mistakes, but the reason that we have turned out to be okay is because of the environment that we lived in and the environment that children are living in today. So I will try to elaborate it by giving you examples. For example, when I was little, okay, even if I grew up in Dubai, when I was little, I did not have gadgets. I did not have exposure. I had a joint family. I lived with my grandparents. We had lots of time to play. Schools were not so stressful. Children, there were a lot of relationships, a lot of cousins, a lot of time to play, a lot of time to interact, a lot of social, physical development that happened. And I think these are the things in your first 6 years which shape you as a person. But today, if you see the lifestyle of a child, I think that children, at all in the whole entire history of man, and especially in the past 10, 15, 20 years, the world has changed a lot. The world has changed to such an extent that the environment that is available for the child has completely changed from the inner needs of the child. So I will not be wrong if I say that the needs of the child are still very primitive. Okay? Man was designed for something else. And he is growing up now, especially in this world and age, as something else. So man was designed, the human child was designed for climbing, for running, for searching, for swimming, for walking, right? See, we have characteristics of mammals. Human children are different from children of other mammals. A human child needs to be taken care of. They are dependent. But the child of other mammals are independent when they are born. They don't need somebody to hold them or give them a walker or give them bottle, right? So the human child has got very different needs, which are still very primitive. The same needs which our ancestors had 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago. The needs haven't changed, but the environment has changed. One second. Let me see what's happening with the... 1 second.
May I request the other teachers to mute themselves, please?
Is this better? Are you able to hear me better now?
Yes, Azma, it is better now.
This is better? Okay. So I think the problem was with me. Are you able to hear properly now?
Yes.
Okay. So I was saying that the problem with development and raising children, the problem with early years has a lot to do with the environment that we are.
Ma'am, voice is echo very much.
Sorry? Is there still an echo?
There is a slight echo, yes.
Okay, I'm trying to reduce the volume. Is this better?
You are on two
No, ma'am,
devices?
no, ma'am.
Are you on two devices?
I am on 2 devices.
You will have to mute yourself from one.
I did.
No,
It's
the
muted.
device, the volume of the device.
Yeah, it's muted. It's muted.
Okay, this is better.
Yes,
Is it
please,
okay?
Azma. Yes, it's better now.
Okay. So, coming back to what we were talking about. So we still have very primitive needs. Okay, we still have extremely primitive needs, but unfortunately, the environment that the child now has to encounter has changed a lot. And so it is not able to cater to the needs of the child. And because the environment is not able to cater to the needs of the child, it affects not just your physical development, not just your emotional development, not just your... It influences the entire personality of the child. It influences the whole learning that the child is going through, right? So the fact that we are now living in nuclear families, the fact that there is a lot of gadgets and digital medium, You don't have grandparents. And now, unfortunately, grandparents are also on WhatsApp. Grandparents also have their online kitty parties. Grandparents are also busy watching YouTubes. Once upon a time, grandparents had all the time in the world to take care of their grandchildren. Not anymore. So these are changes in the environment. These are changes in the growing up years of a child that make such a huge difference to the personality of the child. So imagine a child who is being born in a very affluent family. Even if you don't take a poor child, laborer's child, you take a child who is born in a very affluent family, very rich family. Okay, we'll take that example. I think those children are most neglected. Garib ka bacha phir bhi has a lot to do, but rich children born into rich families, I think, have more compromised early years. It is because nobody has the time. I have worked in schools with very affluent families, and I have seen mothers are busy with kitty parties, dads are busy with jobs and businesses, grandparents are busy with in their own world, with their own friends, their own groups, their own WhatsApp groups, their own social commitments, and the child is left to either the maids, or the child is left to very few people who often don't have the time to listen to what he wants to say, right? And this is the problem. The problem that the child lives in a flat, the problem that the child has less people to play with, the problem that it's not safe to go outside and play with other children, the problem that grandparents don't have the time for conversations, the child doesn't have enough room to play. There is so much pressure from the school in early years also, that the child has tests, he has exams, he has to learn rhymes, he has to finish his writing, and nobody has the time to listen to a child. Nobody has the time for conversation with a child. There is a difference between learning, there is a difference in conversation. When you're having a conversation, it's a two-way process. The way you are talking, the child should also have the opportunities to speak his mind and to say what is bothering or what he's thinking, what he's reflecting on. We often don't have the time for our children. And this is one of the biggest disadvantages that children have today. Also, I want you all to reflect on the kind of schools that we are making for our children. I want you to reflect and think about the play areas that we are having, right? The kind of activities that we are doing in the school. And I want you to sit back for 2 minutes and think, what is it that we are really doing? And I hope that the answer that is going to come back to you is, we are trying to make artificial setting of something that should have been natural, right? So we are trying to have a rock climbing wall in the school because children have nowhere to climb. We are trying to have a sand pit because children don't have sand to play. We are trying to have a swimming pool because there are no rivers for children to go and learn swimming on their own. We are trying to have, show and tell type of activities because children don't have the time to show and tell to anybody. So it is an artificially created environment where we are doing activities of different kinds to teach children something that they should have learned naturally. And of course, when a child is born in an artificial environment with artificial things, with artificially induced learning styles, the child is going to inevitably have some element of artificiality. I hope I'm making sense. Can you, in your chat boxes, tell me that everybody is on par and understanding what I'm saying? I don't want to go ranting on and on with people being confused with what I'm saying. So everybody is good to go?
Definitely. I don't think
Do
there's
I
any
make
kind of
sense?
confusion. If anybody, could kind of unmute themselves and
Okay, great.
know as to where we
Great,
are.
thank you.
If anybody, Nandini, Anita, everybody who are there, if you could put a word across to Asma, what do you think about these things which she's spoken?
Yes, ma'am,
Ma'am,
we are all with you. We echo your thoughts, and we know how it is that to grow naturally, communication, how language is our best clothing to convey our thoughts, to make ourselves understood, to understand, and we do understand the importance of that stimulating environment, which is very vital for a child in their formative years.
Yes, fantastic. So we're going to continue and I'm going to come to the topic now. And this was just an overview so that you understand what kind of a context we are giving the children to grow up in, right? So when we talk of social competence, research says that almost, like I've said before, that everything happens or should happen between the first 6 years of life. And school becomes a very important place for a child to learn social competence, right? When we talk of social competence, I think I can start explaining by telling you what is not social competence so that you understand what is social competence, right? So, for example, insufficient impulse control is social incompetence, right? For example, you have a child in the class, मुझे वो चाहिए, I want that, नहीं मिला, एक box मार दिया. That is social incompetence because the child does not know how to control his impulses, control his first reactions, right? उसके बाद taking turns. When you want to do something, the child should learn. Of course, nursery children don't know it automatically. The teachers and adult parents have to be in taking teaching those things. So, taking turns, children, taking turns for children, negotiating, negotiating. I want this. You want this also. Is it okay if I take it for 2 minutes and then you take it? That is negotiating. It's a skill. It has to be taught. It doesn't come directly into every child. See, one of the things that that I want to put across today is please don't expect children to behave like adults. Even adults are, a lot of adults are socially incompetent. Don't expect the child to say, "Arey, tumhe मालूम है ना वो कैसा है? You should also wait. You should." How can he? He cannot. You cannot expect a child to say, "Beta, you should share," when the child is not in the age for sharing. You cannot ask a child to take his turn when he is in the phase of being egocentric. So you have to continuously look at the stage of development that the child is in and what you are expecting from the child. So resolving
Put in the chat box. Audio clear नहीं है इसका ना बिल्कुल भी. Audio clear नहीं हो रहा.
Asma,
एक
we
chat
have
box.
lost you. Asma, you're on mute on both the logins. Asma, you are on mute on both the IDs. Yes.
hello.
Yes. Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Asma, we can hear you. It's not very clear, but we can hear you.
Oh, it's not clear. I wonder what's happening. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yeah.
Is this better?
No, not better. Audio is not better. Video is good, but audio is not that better.
Children go through a lot of social difficulties, and it is important that we teach them how to cope with those social difficulties. One of the things that happens in schools is a term that is defined by theorists as relational aggression. Aggression which happens with children in relation to one another. So, for example, bullying, being bossy, teasing children, frightening them, getting them to do what you want. These are often traits that you see in children where the adult needs to interfere a little bit and teach children how to go about this behavior and how to recognize this behavior as maybe not acceptable. Okay, so another area where the child needs to be socially competent is if the child is shy. Now, when I say shy, I don't mean that he's shy and he doesn't want to talk to his friend. When I say shy, I mean to the extreme where the child is not able to go to a party, or the child is not able to, enjoy playing with friends because of shyness. That level of shyness is something that you need to acknowledge and see that you are working with it. There are some children in your class whom I'm sure you all have them, where you wish that they were absent. We all have such children. Kabhi kabhi dil karta hai, yaar, please, I hope he's absent today, or I hope she's absent today, because they really tire you out, they really exhaust you. So we all have those children in classes. And it is the role of the teacher to make sure to pick that thing in that child, which is good, which is positive, and to have the ability to make that child understand how he can cope and change that behavior and make it into something positive instead of negative, right? So we are going to talk about that later as you move on. I'm going to give you a few tips and techniques on how to deal with children, and I hope I am able to keep up with the time. So there had some children in the classroom who बिल्कुल ना जो irrelevant बातें करते हैं. आप सूरज की बात कर रहे हो, वो आपको रिवर्स की बात कर रहे हैं. They are totally off. There are some children in the classroom who they're so much quicker, so much smarter than the rest, that they always think that others are like really below them. They really, I'm up and they are all down. Those type of children. So you have like a lot of variety of children in the class. Please give me 1 minute. So I would like to say that parents have a huge role in making sure how children turn out. And this role of parents starts from the very, very first beginning years of life. When children are babies and you hold them in your hand and you say, "Ole baby, so cute. What do you want? What is mama saying?" When you have that kind of a baby talk with the child, that's when social interaction really starts. Okay. So another thing that often works with children is that you should, I think it's a trick that you learn as you go along, and which I see that very less people use, is that you can easily distract children. You can easily make the child, correct the child, but don't keep nagging on the same thing again and again and again. You can easily distract the child to something which is different. okay, and distract him to something which is going to take the attention from what he did wrong. One of the other things is that you need to make sure that when the child is going through something and you're teaching him how to cope, then it has to be consistent. Your behavior has to be consistent and the frequency has to be consistent of your behavior and the way you deal with him. For example, you cannot correct a child one day and second day when he's making the same mistake, you ignore it because you don't have time. If he's doing it again and he's trying to test you to see whether you're going to give them same reaction to the child, again you give a different reaction. For example, for the first time you were patient, but the next time you are getting irritated. So you're confusing the child, you're giving the child mixed signals. So you have to be really careful when you are the kind of reactions that you give the child, the kind of hints and clues that you're giving the child as an adult. You have to be really careful with those hints. You have to be really careful with what the kind of message that you're portraying for the child. I'll give you one example. For example, you know, often I have seen parents who lie to their children, not lie directly, but they kind of, they are talking on the phone and they say, "Haan, bas main nikal gayi, I'm coming. I'm on my way. I've just left," but they're sitting at home. What kind of a message do you think that children are getting when you say such things? You might be in your mind, you know what you're doing, how long it is going to take you for you to reach there. But for the child, what kind of a message is the child getting? So these little things make a huge impact on how the child learns to behave socially with other children. And another thing that I would like to add here is the importance of play. Play is something that makes social engagements extremely meaningful, extremely relevant, and also extremely, it gives them the space to internalize what is going on with the child. So, for example, how many of you have had, किस-किसने गुड़िया की शादी की है? Okay, raise your hands. How many of you, tell me in the chat box, how many of you have dressed up and played as mummy daddy or as teacher? When we give the child, okay, so when we, great, I can see your chats and that you have played. A few of you haven't, but if you haven't, then you've missed out on something. So when we play these games, when we play teacher, when we play mummy daddy, when we play you know, shadi, dulhan banna, when we do all those things, what is happening? The child is getting the time to internalize the social norms that he sees in the society. So I'm sure you have seen a lot of advertisements. Aajkal advertisements bahut zabardast aa rahe hain. So you have seen the advertisements of washing machine, share the load. You have seen advertisements of, you know, how children pick up the dialogues which mothers and fathers say, and through those dialogues, they develop mindsets. Even though you haven't taught it to them, but they are learning it from you. So, yes, children dress up also like adults, but that is something else. But the way you act, the way they see, the rituals that they see in the house, the traditions that they see in the house, the behavior that they see in the house, all adds up to the social norms that the child internalizes as he's growing up. And these norms are things that you really need to be careful of. What kind of a message are you giving to the child? So for example, if you have a son and a daughter, or you have other relatives staying in your house and something is allowed for the boy, but it's not allowed for the girl, or you're always asking the girl to wash the dishes, what message are you, wo to dholegi bartan, what message are you giving your son? That dishes are to be washed by the girls. So when he grows up, he's going to expect the same from his wife. So yes, gender differentiation. So play is something that is disappearing, and which I'm really, I'm really concerned about. Children don't get time to play at home. And with play, I mean unstructured play. I don't mean time to play, go ride a bicycle, go and we are playing hopscotch or badminton. Those are also play, unstructured play, play with no boundaries. Now you are a doctor, in 2 minutes you have turned the game into chore police. Now you are playing police thief, and in 2 minutes you have become an air hostess. That kind of a game where the rules are changing, where dialogues are dynamic, where children are taking different roles, where they are pretending to be different people. So when they pretend to be other people, that is how children actually absorb societal norms and social norms, right? So I think parents and adults are huge role models for social norms. Parents and adults are huge, what should I say? Apart from role models, they are the people who actually teach how behavior, the way you talk to your driver, the way you reply to your mother-in-law. Your child is not listening. He's playing with his car, but he's internalizing the way you react to them.
And Asma, it is rightly said also. Asma, it is rightly said also that values are, yeah. Asma, I just like.
Or fortunately, there is no pause button for a child.
Yeah.
The child is constantly absorbing everything from the environment, whether you like it or you don't like it. One of the things, one of the advantages for absorbent years, the formative years, 0 to 6 years, is that the child will easily learn what you want to teach him. One of the disadvantages of the early years is that the child will also learn a lot of things that you don't want to teach him. You don't want him to learn a lot of things that he's seeing around him, but he will learn a lot of things that he will pick up a lot of things that you don't want him to learn also. So
Asma, can I come in here for a minute? Yeah, what you're saying is absolutely right, because it is generally said also that when you're talking about beliefs, values, they cannot be taught. They are caught by children as you display, in your behavior, right? And the other things is, I think nobody wants to teach children bullying or anything of this kind, but still they are learning because there's so much in the environment as well. So that means that whatever we want to put in the children has to become intentional also with us, and it has to come into our behaviors, and then it gets displayed. Yeah. Thank you, Asma. Please carry on.
Absolutely, absolutely. What we want to teach and here I will say another thing, that I think schools have a huge responsibility. Even when you are hiring people like IMAs, DDs, drivers, conductors, car drivers at home, gardeners, you should have people of good character, people with good moral values, people with good virtues, because whether you like it or not, the little child in your house is learning from them also as much as he's learning from you.
Yes.
So we often look for the best school, but we don't realize that the driver that we have hired is teaching our child a lot of things that the school is not. We put the child, we try to be the best parents, but we forget that the kind of people that we are interacting with, the kind of society, the social circle that the child is interacting with, is also influencing him a lot, is also making a huge impact on his learning. What he's seeing from the environment, what he's picking up from the neighbors, what he's picking up from the people around you, from the drivers, from the maids, these are people in the child's life that you cannot avoid. So my suggestion, it's very difficult, but even if it is possible, then try to choose people with gentle mannerisms, with good etiquettes, with good manners, with good language into your schools and into your homes, because they are going to be more valuable in early years than you think. Okay, so now here we will stop, and I will say that now, since we have talked so much about the social competencies and things at home, we are going to talk about the teacher. So what is it that the teacher has to do over here? You have to understand that whether you like it or not, whether you want to or not, half of the problems that are happening at home are brought to school. You cannot solve all of them. Okay, you don't have the authority maybe also to solve all of them. You don't, sometimes you don't have the right to interfere also, and you shouldn't. But you cannot neglect the fact that the child who is entering your classroom is coming with a baggage from his house. Okay, so there is a lot that is happening at home, and here again I will stop and say that one of the problems with early years, and I hope that the new national education policy will be able to eliminate it. One of the problem with early years is that we are grounded in curriculum. We are bounded by a syllabus even in early years. बड़े लोगों को तो जो होता है वो छोड़ो, but early years में भी हमने अपने बच्चों को, उनकी growth को, उनके conversation को limit कर दिया by giving them a syllabus. It is a whole different topic. We will talk about it some different time, but to cut a long story short, you have to understand that you cannot have a curriculum, a syllabus for early years. ठीक है, they need to learn ABC, they need to learn 1, 2, 3, but that is not the priority. That is not priority in early years. Nursery में, PP1 में, PP2 में, LKG, UKG में, 1, 2, 3 and ABC is not your goal, is not your target. Okay? In early years, your target is language development. And when I say language development, again I will like to say that language development does not mean learning alphabet. क्योंकि unfortunately हमारे देश में bilingual सुन के सबका heart attack हो गया था, bilingual in early years, because everybody said अब हम nursery में बच्चे को English alphabet भी सिखाएं, हिंदी alphabet भी सिखाएं. Language has got nothing to do with alphabets. How did you learn language? Did you learn language by learning a, e, I, u, or did you learn language by listening to it and speaking the language? Right? So language is learned by listening and speaking, by having conversations. And if it is mandatory on us to create artificial environments for learning in school, which the child does not have at home, what does that mean? That means we need to have a space where the child is able to absorb language the way he would if he was not in school, if he was in his natural surroundings, right? So learning a language and bilingual language, अब आप सोचो आपकी क्लास में एक पिद्दू सा बच्चा है, बेचारा गुजराती है, मराठी है, तेलुगु है, चलो हिंदी उर्दू स्पीकिंग जो भी है. He is going to the school for the first time and he's got a teacher who's talking to him in English. And that teacher is saying, what is your name? Very nice shirt. What are you doing? अब उसकी मम्मा ने उसे थोड़ा थोड़ा सिखाया है. वो बेचारा समझ तो रहा है, but he doesn't have the vocabulary to say it out to you. So he's looking at your face. Not because he doesn't know what you are saying. Maybe he does know what you are saying. But he's trying to process and internalize the conversation that you are having with him. And we are so quick and so impatient कि हम समझते हैं कि बस हमने उससे क्वेश्चन पूछा है तो बस वो तुरंत जवाब दे दे. वो अभी बोले कि मैंने उससे जो पूछा है उसका आंसर दे दे. फिर हम बोलते हैं बुद्धू इसको कुछ नहीं समझ में आता. अच्छा कोई बात नहीं तुम चले जाओ. अब वो अपने दिमाग में सोच रहा है कि उसको आई, माई, येलो, मम्मा He's forming the words to give you an answer, but we don't have the time to listen to him, right? So when I'm very happy with the new national education policy and being bilingual in foundation years, because, and here I will like to stress that being bilingual does not mean that you are teaching alphabets. It means that you are having two languages for conversation. And children in early years have got the ability to learn 6 languages simultaneously. They can learn Spanish, they can learn German, they can learn Telugu, they can learn French, they can learn Tamil, they can learn Sanskrit, they can learn everything, as long as you are consistently teaching them languages. So, and as long as you are conversing, they are listening and they are speaking to you. They have the opportunity to speak. अब हम क्या करते हैं? हम अपनी classrooms में बोलते हैं. If I tell a parent to speak in English, generally they say, bring your book, come here, sit down. Is this conversation? What is the child going to do? The child is going to answer you, right? The child is going to bring the book. The child will open his tiffin box. The child will sit down. What conversation did you have? So please, in your curriculums, and I have not deviated from my social emotional topic, I'm coming back to it. I was trying to create a background. You have to understand that in early years curriculum, content is extremely important. And when you have a syllabus to teach, when you have ABCD to teach and 1, 2, 3 to teach, then you don't have content because you have to finish the syllabus. So what is it that is required? What is required is that you need to have a project-based approach. You need to have a theme-based approach. You need to have enough areas and learning stations in your classroom where a lot of things are happening, where you are not telling the child to put his finger on his lips and listen to me, and when you get a chance, only then you have to speak. You are giving the natural environment for the child to have conversations, to learn from his experiences, to interact socially, to learn how to deal with his emotions. And when you give that child that space, when you give that child that environment, that structure, that is where real learning is going to happen. So 0 to 6 years is not for academics. 0 to 6 years is not for 1, 2, 3 and ABC. 0 to 6 years is for language development, physical development. Agar kabhi mauka mila, to I will take a session on how important physical development is. And most of the learning problems that we are having, learning difficulties that we are having in children today is because they don't have enough physical development. So it is because of physical development. You have language development. Children need to practice social etiquettes. They need to practice, they need the space and the freedom to practice emotions, coping with emotions, practicing. आज मैं आपको एक अपनी बेटी का एक आपको इंसिडेंट समझाती हूँ, then you will understand what I'm trying to talk about. So my daughter, I have 3 daughters and my youngest daughter को काटने का बड़ा शौक था. And उस वक्त मैं नई Montessori teacher थी. तो you can imagine my condition. मैं जमीन के अंदर चली जाती थी जब वो काटती थी या थूकती थी, or she did something like that. So she used to bite because she couldn't talk properly. She used to bite and she used to get extremely frustrated. So being a young mother and not knowing a lot, I used to threaten her and say, "Katna nahi, it is bad, you shouldn't cut." And I couldn't understand how to deal with her. Anyway, slowly she learned that she is not supposed to bite. She's supposed to talk. And very slowly, over a period of 4-5 months, she got the habit of, and this is what something that I'm going to show you. She got the habit of refraining from her instinct, from her impulse to bite, and learning that the better way instead of biting is saying that you don't like something. And so one day we were at somebody's house and she came running and she was crying and in tears and bilkul out of control. And she said, "Ab chalo, ab chalo." And I said, "Okay, kidhar chalo?" And she took me to her friend and she said, "Ye कितनी गंदी है, इसको काटो. And to my amazement, she understood. What I learned from this incident is that she understood that it is okay for, she is not supposed to bite, but because I am the mother, I can bite. And I hope you understand the weight that was on me, because I realized that she has picked up from me that there are many things that I am able to do as an adult which she is not allowed to do, right? So I hope you understand how we role model ourselves. For example, we eat in front of the TV, but we tell children don't eat in front of the TV, right? So we need to create an environment, and now we are going to talk about a little bit of teaching skills that you need to have in order to kind of deal with children in class. So there is a cycle that children go through in classrooms, and that cycle is, you know, we tend to label children. ये slow है, ये बहुत तेज लड़की है, she is shy, this child is a bully, this child is super smart, this child is very harsh. We constantly label children, and when we label children, we have to understand that they start defining themselves with those labels. So if you are calling me shy once or twice, you are calling me shy, then I will be shy, because I have understood that I am a shy person. Maybe I am not shy. Maybe I have not learned, but that is what I keep hearing from people. So I will tend to be more shy. So these are repetitive cycles. These are definitions that children create about themselves, which as adults and as teachers, you have to break, right? So you have to break this cycle of belief, self-attribution. It is called in psychology, and in technical terms, it is called self-attribution. So you are supposed to break this cycle of self-attribution so that the child has the ability to explore himself, explore his personality, explore what kind of a person he really is, instead of the child attaching himself or herself to a label that you have given him, right? So this is one important thing that you have to remember as a teacher. Another important thing that you have to, and another thing, this label has to be broken in the first 6 years of life. If you don't break this label in the first 6 years of life, then this label is going to stick with you for the rest of your life. And this label is going to stop you from doing a lot of things that you were capable of doing, because in your mind, you think that you cannot do it. Okay? So, so this is one of the most important role and functions of a teacher in order to make the child socially and emotionally competent, is to break that cycle that the teacher starts noticing and observing. So for example, if there is a child जिसे हमेशा डांट पड़ती है, if there is a child in the class who always gets nagged, who's always scolded, do you think the child will want to come to school? I don't think so. If I'm constantly put down, and if I'm constantly, people are scolding me for whatever reason, if I'm constantly getting into fights, if people are constantly bickering about me, I don't want to go to school. And I have learned very early on in life that nobody bothers about me. Nobody cares about me. I am not important. So this is a cycle. तो फिर वो शुरू हो जाता है, मुझे स्कूल नहीं जाना, मुझे स्कूल नहीं, क्यों नहीं जाना? He is not able to explain, क्यों नहीं जाना, बस नहीं जाना, I don't want to go to school. So As a teacher, if you are able to say to a really difficult child, a really, a really hard, annoying, irritating child, sorry for using that term, but just for expression and for explaining myself, if you are able to say to a child, hey, what happened to you yesterday? I missed you. Usually when you're around, I have to keep running on my feet, and yesterday I had nothing to do. So you're not actually lying. You're making the child feel that you noticed his absence. And if you say, hey, what happened? Do you think we can sit and talk about this? Sit and talk about what happened? By the way, just as a tip, children love drama. Okay? आपको जितना पसंद है ना ड्रामा, बच्चों को उससे डबल पसंद है ड्रामा. So if you are getting angry at something, if you are asking the children, be quiet everybody, finger on your lips, आवाज नहीं आए मुझे किसी की, that's drama for them. Okay? If you are shouting and if you are getting flustered और आपका पसीना छूट रहा है, that is drama for children. Children love drama. So in a moment of extreme stress in your classroom, what you need to do, which is very difficult, but it can be done, I promise you, is stop the drama and be very calm. Don't respond. Be extremely calm. Respond very carefully and say, okay, I saw what you, for example, somebody has spilled paint on the floor. You told them, don't do this, don't sit here, don't keep the bottle over here. They didn't listen to you. They spilled it all on the floor, and now you have to call and get somebody to clean, but you have to teach, and another child is crying and somebody has to go susu. So you are all flustered, and we are normal human beings, right? So we tend to get angry and we say, I told you not to do this. Maine bola tha, don't pick it up here. That's what we normally tend to do. But if you can train yourself to stay calm and not respond and talk to the child after the incident has happened and let the child realize what went wrong instead of reacting when the thing happened. Trust me, when you talk to the child after the incident, you're going to get much, much, much better results. So breaking the cycle, breaking the tendency for, so for example, this clumsy child who's always throwing things, people call them clumsy. People tend to label them कि इससे हमेशा गड़बड़ होती है. So you need to break that cycle, because that is the definition that the child will have in his head. So you can say, next time you want to play with the paints and you want to paint something, why don't you ask me for help? We'll put your paints in such a place that it will not fall and you can still have fun. And what you have actually done is that you have given the child something to think about. You have given the child, I'm sorry, something has, are we okay? Okay. So you have given the child something to think about. You have given the child hope that things can be better, and he can change the way he has behaved by being careful, right? So that is one important thing. The second important thing is, don't try to resolve all conflicts between the children. Don't try to be the mediator and solve all the problems. Teachers and adults and parents should not solve problems for children. Children should solve problems for themselves. What you can do is that you intervene just a little bit so that you're able to smoothen the problem, so that you're able to supervise the problem, so that you're able to get a hold and a grip on the situation. But let the children decide what is the next step and give them a suggestion of what is possible and what is not possible. So that's your second tip. Not to interfere too much, but to interfere just a little bit to show the children that you are there for them, but not solve their problem and resolve their conflicts. One of the things that I have seen my mentors saying is that social conflict is an opportunity. Actually, it is an opportunity for teaching, not for preaching. So I hope you realize the weight of this sentence. Every opportunity that happens in your classroom, every accident that happens in your classroom, every disaster that happens in your classroom is an opportunity to teach children a lot of things that you would otherwise not have the opportunity to teach. Maybe you can teach them values, maybe you can teach them how to think about other people's feelings, maybe you can teach them how to cope with people who are less competent than they are. Maybe you can teach the child how to accept another child who is less able. So every disaster that happens can be used as an opportunity for learning instead of an opportunity for preaching. Okay? And I think this is extremely important. This is extremely important for the child to understand, have empathy, be in another child's shoes, learn to respect and think of other people's feelings, and that you can role model a lot of things in between. I'm sure in your classrooms you have two teachers, one co-teacher, you have different subject teachers, you have different people that you work with. The way you behave and converse with, your colleagues is a huge, you are role modeling for the child and for the behavior that the child is going through. So another thing for social emotional development is the adult should always mean what they say. Second, they should always keep their word. You cannot say, I know, I'm sorry, I know you're feeling bad, and not mean it. Because children are not stupid. They can read your body language, they can read your gestures, they can see your eyes, they can make from your face what you mean and what you don't mean. Okay? So there are some very tricky situations that we come up with, but it is extremely important for you to realize that you have to mean what you say and say what you mean. Don't give empty threats to the child, because when you start giving children empty threats, they get used to it. Rose bolti hai. She's not really going to do it. So mean what you say and absolutely say what you mean. Be truthful to children. When we have, as parents, when we say, nahin, I'm not taking you with me because मैं डॉक्टर के पास जा रही हूँ, मुझे सुई लगवाने के लिए जाना है. What nonsense. Develop a trust between the child. I think that is one of the most important things, is to develop trust between the adult and the child. Build relationships. Early years is for building relationships with children. And I think a trusting relationship goes a long way in social and emotional development. And having that time, that 2 minutes to look into a child's eye, to talk to a child, to acknowledge his presence, to acknowledge his spirit, is going to make that child more manageable for you than 100 years of preaching. And I can say it with complete confidence. Build the trust in children. So I'm going to, because ma'am asked me to share my experiences, and I'm going to sway a little bit away from the topic and tell you how we build trust, because that is extremely important for social emotional learning. So in my nursery, when we have new children in the school, we don't call all the children in one day. Okay, we call 2-3 children and we give them time slots, different time slots. So when a new child is coming to my class, or my school, and even if I'm the school leader, we all need to pitch in. We take the child, that we welcome the child into the school, because it is the first day for a child. The child has separation anxiety from the mother, right? So we invite the child to the school. We get the child to see the classroom, to see the playground, to have a walk with the mother. And that's it. The first day, 15 minutes of walking around the classroom and the space that the child is supposed to be in, and you go home. That's it. No teaching, no class. हम लोग क्या करते हैं? नर्सरी के बच्चे रो रहे हैं, वॉमिटिंग कर रहे हैं, सुसु कर रहे हैं, आयास पड़ी हुई हैं, लोग पड़े हुए हैं, they're all crying on your head and it's a headache. I really don't believe in this. I really don't believe that that's how children should come to school. So we call in the children in different time slots. It's very painful, but I promise you that if you take this difficult route, your whole year is going to be excellent. And aap log mujhe duaएं doge, okay? So you call the children to the class, you show them the class, bye-bye, they go back. The second day, you call the children to the class, you show them the whole room, and you shake hands, you sit with them, you give them something to do, you give them a pencil, you have a little bit of eye contact and interaction, bye-bye, and go out. The third day, the child comes to the school, the mother is going to stand outside the class, you are going to take the child from the mother, and you're going to say, in 1 minute, I will give you back to mommy. 1 minute, only 1 minute, I will give you back to mommy. And you take the child from the mother, you close the door, you take a walk around the classroom. The child is going to be screaming and shouting. Definitely he'll be screaming and shouting in your ears, wriggling to get out from your arms. 1 minute, you go back and you return the child to the mother and you say bye-bye, and the child goes home. Next day, again the child comes to school. Again you 1 minute, 2 minutes, and you say, I'm going to walk around the class and I'm going to give you back to your mama. And you keep doing this and you build the minutes. 1 din, 2 din, 3 din, you build the trust with the child, and the child finally understands she's not going to kidnap me. She's not going to take me away from my mother. If she says 2 minutes, she will give me back to my mother after 2 minutes. And that is how you build trust. And I promise you that if you follow this technique in early years for new admission children, the children will be eating out of your hands. The whole year, they will do what you want them to sit. They will stand if you want them to stand. I promise you. A week is torture because you have to do it over and over again, and there are many children in the classroom. But after 1 week, it is going to be a piece of cake for your nursery class. So again, when the child is, that is building trust and building a relationship with the child. And trust is an extremely important factor for social emotional growth. Extremely important. Trust with parents, trust with, teachers, trust with adults around them. Here, I will pause and I would like to show you a presentation. Ma'am, I can share the screen. And I'm sure all of you already know it. Can you see the screen?
Yes, yes.
One second. Okay.
Sharing has stopped, I believe.
I had 1 second. Sorry, I had opened my presentation and it seems to have disappeared. 1 second. Found it. Sorry. Okay, I think I'll keep talking till I find it so that we don't waste time.
Yes, sure.
So I'm talking to you about, I don't know how many of you, can you tell me in the chat if you have all know Maslow's theory, hierarchy of needs? Tell me in the chat if you know about Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yes, ma'am, very much. Yes.
So when you talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, for those of you who don't know, Maslow was a theorist, a psychologist, and he gave a level of needs. And he said that at the base, you have, your primitive needs, your physiological needs, which are extremely important. And unless those needs are fulfilled, you cannot reach your potential. You cannot do what you want to do. And the second on that ladder is your sense of love and belonging, right? Your sense of safety and security, your sense of love and belonging. Just give me 1 second. I will take it out for you. 1 second.
Asma, even if you are not able to, they can all open on their own mobiles. So this hierarchy.
So what happens is that unless the child learns how to love, unless the child feels protected, unless the child has a sense of belonging, he will not be able to reach high and reach his true self, right? So for a child, trust is extremely big. Trust is extremely huge. You need to be able to trust an adult. It is like your anchor. And if the child is not able to trust his parents, if a child is not able to trust the adults, everything in his world kind of goes wrong, right? So we are going to next, for social emotional learning, I want to talk to you about 3 more things. So we wanted to give you teacher tips. So teacher tips are: speak clearly and matter-of-factly, have trust with the children, build a relationship, have content for talking. You should have enough content, enough matter, enough things going on around you to have a constant conversation with a child. You can have ground rules which are supposed to be the same for everybody. So for example, if a child wants to come and sit with you, and you are not supposed to sit with the teacher, but the child is saying, I want to sit on your lap. And you tell the child, no, you cannot sit on my lap because I'm telling a story right now. There is a way that you talk to children. You cannot say, oh, What will other children think? It's not fair, no beta. The child doesn't care whether it is fair or not. So you have to say things very matter of factly. You have to say it very clearly, and you have to say it without making the child feel bad. Another important role of the teacher is to help the child to have coping skills. Okay, you need to cope with a situation. You need to be self-regulatory. You need to have self-awareness. You need to have you need to teach children how to move from point X to point Y. For example, when a child is biting, you cannot expect the child to stop biting in the first day. The child has to stop biting. First, he is going to consciously stop. Unconsciously, he is going to bite. Then you're going to keep telling him, talking to him. And by the way, you don't preach children, okay? The way you talk to children or teach them things that are happening in around them is by giving them stories, by storytelling, and also through a lot of projects, a lot of art, a lot of activities, and through these, a lot of nature, a lot of stories about other people. And you have to teach the child how to cope with their situation, how to cope with their feelings, and it comes gradually. So for the first time, the child is going to do things repeatedly, even after you have told him that you're not supposed to do it. Then the child is going to slowly know that he's not supposed to do it, but will not be able to control himself. That is the second stage. Third, he wants to hit, but now he knows that he's not supposed to hit, so he kind of controls himself. But sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't happen. Third, last stage, and this is difficult even for most of the adults, is when you are able to control your impulses and control yourself. So children really need to be acknowledged for controlling themselves. Children really need to be acknowledged for having the ability to resist what they wanted to do. And you really need to teach them through activities how to cope with anger, how to cope with a child who's bossy. When you see one child bullying another child, you cannot interfere. I will not interfere and say, stop bullying him. What I will do is, I will try to call the bully and I will speak to the bully separately and tell them, sensitize them towards other children's feelings and say, sensitize them towards other children's emotions. I will do a story in the class about bullying so that the bully doesn't feel that he's being targeted, but he knows, he gets the message. And then we will, for the child who is the victim, I will try to empower the child and give him different techniques and different solutions of coping up with children who are bossy and who are trying to intimidate him. Now, there are 2-3 things that happen in this scenario. One thing is that you are not solving the child's problem, but you're giving him a lifelong lesson on how to have the strength to respond to someone who's trying to dominate you. Second, to the bully, you are not saying that you are encouraging what he's doing, but the bully knows very quietly that you're watching him and you are giving him the space to sort out his issues, sort out his problems without being labeled, without attributing him as a bully. Please remember, जिस तरह से हम लोग shy label करते हैं, loving, friendly label करते हैं, helping label करते हैं, उसी तरह से अगर किसी बच्चे के ऊपर bully का दाग लग जाए ना, तो वो उसकी personality के साथ बहुत time तक रहता है. And if the child is in the same school, then the child is considered to be a bully by the teachers, by the principal, by the people. Imagine what a miserable existence it is. And even if the child wants to change, he will not be able to change. And then he will live up to the expectation that you have of him. So if you have considered him to be a bully, he will be a bully for life, because that is the definition that you have created for him. So you have to make sure that you are teaching the victim how to stand up for himself, and you are also teaching the bully how to empathize with others, how to take care of other people's emotions, how to balance thoughts, how to appreciate others and others' gifts, how to take turns, how to share, how to cope with the feelings that you have. Maybe you can use art. Maybe you can have expressions. Maybe you can teach the victim and the other children that he is also struggling. It is his nature to hit, but he's struggling to control his nature. He's struggling to overcome, and let us help him overcome. He's finding it difficult. He wants to have friends like you, but he's finding it difficult to make friendships. So how do we teach, how do we help that child to not be a bully, right? So please do understand your role is extremely important in the lives of not just children that you want to empower, but also children who you want to bring on track. Expelling children from schools, especially in early years, giving them blacklisted, calling their parents. When you call parents, I don't call parents for rectifying the behavior because they are helpless themselves. I am the person who is trained. The parent is not trained in child development. I am trained in child development. So I don't expect the parents to have a solution to the problem. Sometimes there are some parents who sit with their heads in their hand and say, Madam, kya kare? Aap bolo, hum kya kare? So you cannot call a parent and just complain about a child or a particular behavior. You need to have the solutions to those behaviors. So when you call a parent, you are going to try to understand what is happening in the life of the child. You will try to understand what is happening in the household. You will try to understand who is bullying at home. Maybe the father is a bully. Maybe the father is bullying the mother. Maybe that's where he's learning it from. Some things are really personal and really, not very nice. But sometimes you can see the grandfather bullying others in the household, and that is where the child is picking it up from. So when you are calling the parents, you are not calling to complain, rather you're calling for cooperation. You're calling for empathizing with them. You're calling for finding out the child's history and what is happening in his background. Okay, so that is one thing. Another thing that you have to do as a teacher for encouraging healthy social emotional learning is teach children how to take pleasure in each other's work. Teach children how to acknowledge and appreciate other people's work. I'll give you a small example. If you have, I'm sure everybody has bulletin boards and you put up children's work. अक्सर मैंने ये देखा है कि we say, no, we cannot have competition between children. We have to put up the work of everybody. Everybody's work is nice. Yes, it is nice and it should be acknowledged and it should be appreciated. But again, be truthful. Don't say, wow, what a beautiful painting or kitne achhe. Instead of being silly about something, I call teachers being silly and over exaggerated over something. Instead of doing that, what you can do is say, I like the colors that you have used. What have you tried to make? Oh, is this an alligator? Where is the alligator going? So have a conversation. If a child is showing you a drawing, have a conversation. Anyway, coming back, appreciate everybody's work. But when the pictures go on the bulletin board and one child is feeling bad that my picture did not go up, you acknowledge the fact that yes, your picture did not go up, but that's okay. Your friend's picture went up. And see what a beautiful picture he has made. See the way he has colored, what kind of colors he has used. So instead of making the child feel important all the time, it is okay for the child to feel that he's not as good as others in one or two areas. It's perfectly okay. That's my theory and my opinion. And I have a lot of research and things with which I'm claiming the statement that I am. You can see it in different researches for early childhood development, that it's perfectly okay for children to feel pain. It is perfectly okay for children to feel that they have not succeeded in something as well as their peers. What we are trying to teach children is to be happy for others, appreciate others. I did not come first in the race, but my friend came first in the race. So can I be happy for her, please? Instead of feeling sorry for myself, can we teach children to be happy for others? And that is one of your roles. That is one of your roles as a teacher. So, of course, children at no point should be compared with each other. You cannot compare children. It's an absolute no-no. And when you are comparing also, there is a risk of telling the child that somebody is better than you are. And so inevitably, that child is going to feel, for example, you're comparing two sisters, okay? And you say A is better than B. तुम उसकी तरह क्यों नहीं बनती? Why don't you draw like her? See how beautiful her handwriting is. See how nicely she has done her work. Have you seen what kind of grades she gets? Why don't you study like your sister? Why don't you do this like your sister? What you are actually doing is making the child so fed up of the sister that you are actually, adults make the children jealous, number one. Number two, because of the constant comparison, the child is under so much stress that if the sister's writing is beautiful and her writing got spoiled for some reason, maybe uske upar pani gir gaya ya ink gir gayi or her work got spoiled, unfortunately, you're teaching that child that she is going to be happy and relieved that her work got spoiled, for example. So when we compare children, we take the risk of making that children develop some sort of negative response when the other child doesn't do as well, okay? And that is a risk that we cannot take. So please be mindful of that. You also need to teach children how to predict other people's feelings, how to empathize with others. Can you imagine how she's feeling right now? Not always. A 3-year-old child, a 4-year-old child cannot always imagine what another person is feeling. But you have started sowing the seed of that emotion in them, of that thought in them. Agar if you tell a 3-year-old, see, Dadi is not feeling well, she has hurt her knees are really bad. Can you please think that Dadi cannot run with you because Dadi's knees are hurting? Can you please not trouble Dadi and ask her to play bat and ball with you because her knees are hurting today? So maybe a 3-year-old does not have the ability to understand how the Dadi is feeling because he's still pretty much egocentric maybe or whatever. Maybe he still hasn't learned it. But what you are doing is you are sowing the seeds of empathetic behavior in the child. I would like to stop here for 1 minute and I will try to, I really want to cover 2-3 very important things and I'm really very quickly running out of time. I hope all of you are not bored to death, but I promise you that this last bit is going to be super interesting. If anybody has any questions or if I'm going too fast, you want me to repeat, can you write in the slide in the chat box? And while I take out 2-3 things that I want to show you.
You can always go ahead, Asma, because this is all that you are discussing are definitely basic things which are very, very important in this area. And most of the teachers are very much aware and I think following 99% in their, kind of work when they are talking to children, when the classroom happens, and now particularly when the mode has changed because there's no more offline classes happening, it is online classes happening. But still, how the teachers are managing evening sessions, especially to bring in this social emotional kind of development in children, because this platform has definitely changed so many things in the lives of students and teachers both. But still, I like to share it with you that all these teachers in the early years have created their own platforms, special sessions, one-on-one with children, together with children, which is storytelling, which is cheery evening, just to have interaction so that the children can see their friends. They can talk to them. It is not a structured learning, academic sessions going on, but it is just connecting, talking, interacting, seeing each other and feeling good about it. Yeah, Asma, yes, please, you can continue.
That's super fantastic, ma'am. I'm so glad that the teachers are able to connect with the children and deal with them. There are 2-3 things that I have recently learned, which I would like to share with you. I hope to give you something new. So I'm trying to, there is a whiteboard over here, right, that I can draw. One second. One second. So can you see on the screen, social emotional learning? This is a cycle that I'm sure if you are, I'm sure you are already all aware, but for maybe new teachers. So we first teach children how to manage themselves, okay? We teach children how to manage their own behaviors and their own emotions and become self-aware. You recognize what is happening with you. You recognize an emotion. I'm angry. I'm sleepy. I'm tired. I'm lonely. I'm frustrated. I'm irritated. Something has happened, and I'm feeling so sad. So you make the children aware of themselves, and then you teach children how to manage themselves, how to manage this feeling of loneliness, how to manage this feeling of anger that I'm feeling, how to manage irritability, how to manage frustration when you are not getting what you want to get, right? So you teach children how to manage, and then slowly over a period of time, and of course it cannot be done in 1 year in one class, you have to kind of break it up into 3-4 years. So maybe in nursery and lower KG, the children can become self-aware, and you start talking about coping mechanisms. And as the children move on to upper kindergarten, you talk about social awareness, you talk about empathy, you talk about anticipating other people's feelings, predicting how they will feel. And then as the children grow up over the years, they talk about forming relationships with people, forming a bond, forming trusts. And then you, as children grow much older, you talk about responsible decision making, right? You talk about choosing the right thing to do. And again, since you are already doing a lot, I'm sure that you are talking about values, and you're talking about virtues to children, because this is an extremely important thing to have in, and which can only be done in the early years. Now here, I have always been saying that you cannot do it after 6 years, but I would like to clarify that it is possible to do things after 6 years. The only difference is that it all depends on the will of the child. If the child wants to, he will do it after 6 years. But before 6 years, you have the power as an adult to infuse into the child a lot of learning that can happen even if the child is not interested, right? So for example, the child is not interested in learning how other people feel, okay? He's egocentric, he doesn't care. I don't care how she feels. I want what I want, because that is how a child is. But when you are doing those activities, when you're doing those storytelling, when you're doing those things in early years, you're making a point of it, you're making it into a discussion, you're making it into a circle time talk, then that thing stays into your mind, and you are able to retrieve that from memory when it is needed as you grow older. It stays with you. It stays in your personality. It stays in your character, right? So that is also something which is very important. So after 6 years, the child will work on himself and improve himself, or improve a behavior, or change his behavior pattern only if he or she wants to. The will becomes very strong after 6 years, which is not present in early years. It is present in different ways, but the child does not have the filter to absorb what he wants to absorb, right? So that is another very important point. Okay, now the new learning that I wanted to share with you is that I don't know how many of you have read or are familiar with Rudolph Steiner. Ma'am, are they familiar with Rudolph Steiner?
I think you can explain that, and
Okay.
then let us see. Yeah.
So if you are aware of Rudolph Steiner, then Rudolph Steiner talks of children with their temperaments. Of course, temperaments are something which are very natural, very basic, very personal to everybody. And I don't have the time to elaborate, so I will quickly breeze through it just to give you an understanding of, because it was, for me, it was like a whole new universe of understanding children. So Steiner talks of temperaments, and in KG, in nursery, you cannot really work on those temperaments because it is all about physical development in the early years, in the 0 to 6 years. But you can definitely identify the temperament of the child. And so Steiner talks of 4 things which you have even in your yoga and in your, in your ancient Indian learning. You have 4 kind of elements that personalities are made of: your earth, fire, water, air. So Steiner talks of the same 4 elements, and he has given them 4 names. The 4 names are, for example, you have the child with the child which is very earthy, the earthy child. He calls it the phlegmatic child. Okay, and the opposite of the phlegmatic child, the opposite personality of the phlegmatic child. Sorry, that is the melancholic child. The earthy personality is the melancholic child. And the opposite of the melancholic child is your sanguine child, your air. Opposite of water, opposite of earth is air. So you have your phlegmatic child and you have your sanguine child. Then you have, on one side, you have your choleric child, and on the other side, you have your phlegmatic child. Now, these are different temperaments which children have. And to make a very long story short, your melancholic child is your wise child, is the child in the classroom who is wise beyond his years. But the child is constantly, has got a lot of complaints, has got a lot of sorrow, is able to feel too much for himself and for others, and doesn't have the ability to cope. And if you start noticing children very carefully, this child tends to be tall and slim, very tall, very slim, with a very bent neck, with heavy feet which are dragging on the ground. This child feels as if the weight of the world is on his shoulders, right? So this is a melancholic child, and there is nothing wrong with it, mind you. I would please like you to understand that in no way are we labeling the children. We are not labeling children. We are trying to understand their temperament, because it is through this temperament that you will be able to work with children to make them better. So the melancholic child, the earthy child, is is centered toward the self. He feels what I am important, I am special, nobody understands me, nobody knows how I'm feeling. These kind of feelings. And the opposite of that characteristic, which the two cannot go together, is your air child, your sanguine child. And when you look at a sanguine child, he has a beautiful body, like perfect shape, good neck, good head, like beautiful figure, beautiful form. And just by looking at the child, you can say that this is a sanguine child, and that child is like air. The personality, the temperament of the, not personality, the temperament of that child is like air. It's very fleeting. Kabhi idhar, you like this, now I like this, now I like this, now I like this. The sanguine child is like a butterfly. The sanguine child keeps hopping from one thing to the other, right? And I'll talk more about it later. On one side, you have the phlegmatic child. The phlegmatic child has got a roundish body, has got a slightly heavy body, neck is slightly shorter, and you can see many people in your lives who are like that. And a wrong word, this is not the right word to use for, but just to make it easier for you to understand, has got a slightly lazy personality, very difficult to push, difficult to motivate, difficult to arouse an interest. Okay? And then on the opposite of the phlegmatic side, you have, so this is your water child, stagnant, quiet, calm. And the opposite of the phlegmatic child is your choleric child, is your leader, is your doer, is the fire, is the person who wants to do everything before you have finished the sentence. There are many children who are in your classroom. When you give them something to do, they rush to do it, and they are the first ones to do it, and you know that it will be done really well because these are your responsible children. Now again, I am not saying that choleric is good, being a leader is good, and phlegmatic is not good. I'm not saying sanguine is bad and melancholic is good, or melancholic is good or sanguine is bad. Please understand, we are not labeling any child. We are trying to understand their temperament. We are trying to understand their disposition, so that when you are working with such children, you have the ability to understand where their social and emotional feelings are coming from. So for example, if you see a melancholic child, the sad child, you will know that that sadness, that melancholy, that dullness, that feeling too much sensitivity for the entire world is a part of their personality, and you are definitely not trying to change it, because that is the temperament with which he has to conquer the world. But what you are trying to do as a teacher is that you will try to make the child more open to the world instead of only with himself. And once the child, you provide opportunities for the child to open gateways to the world, to open gateways to the others around them, the child grows and transforms and changes to become the most caring of all professions, like a philosopher, a psychologist, a doctor, a teacher, a trainer, a therapist. Okay? This doesn't mean that a choleric cannot become a trainer or a therapist. It just means that these kind of people have more temperament to choose those lines and the ability to do it more naturally. Now, the sanguine child is fleeting like air, moving from one And please again understand, children when they are small, when they are 2, 3, 4 years old in pre-primary years, are all sanguine, are all fleeting. They have short attention spans. Okay, so we are not again, we are not labeling the children. We are trying to understand their temperament so that we can work with them better. So that child has a different personality, has a different body disposition, has a different contour. They are very clearly sanguine. Okay, and when they become sanguine, then your role as a teacher is to get them to work with one thing, get them to stop, get them to hold on to one part, do it well, and then move on, right? So you have your choleric child, you have your fire child, who is very, very quick, has got a lot of leadership qualities. But you know what happens with the choleric child? What happens with a choleric child is that they become lonely because they are the first ones to do things. They are the first ones to finish everything. They are most responsible. They are the doers of the class. So your role as a teacher is to identify these children and make sure that they have friends, that they are able to grow socially and they're able to grow emotionally, right? Then you have your phlegmatic people, the calm, the water, the stagnant, the um, they will not be quick to respond. They will be slow in reacting to something, which is very good, which is something that you want to have in the class, which is something that grounds your classroom. And what you need to do with these children is to make them interest them in something and build friendships for them, so that you are able to help them to identify with others and grow with others. Now again, two things that I would like to tell you. All people are not only one type. People are mixtures. They have different shades. They have different personalities. So for example, me, I am sanguine and I'm also choleric. Okay. I have that leadership quality, but as a child, I think I was very much sanguine, and I learned and I adapted and I got the temperament of being a choleric later on in life. A lot of your children are a lot of different personalities, and I know that this is not enough time to give you the whole semester work in 15 minutes, but just for you to identify, just for you to understand that you cannot fight with the temperament of children. Different children have got different temperaments, and you have to, as a teacher, work with these temperaments, identify these temperaments, isolate these temperaments, and balance these temperaments by giving children a variety of experiences. So early years, again, is not about academics. It is not about learning how to read and write and 1, 2, 3. Learning years is about experiences, is about forming relationships, is about forming social connections, is about having meaningful content to talk and converse about, to develop language, to develop the body, to develop agility, to develop skills, and to internalize values. So I think I have overrun my time. It's almost 6 o'clock and I want to have the space to be able to answer your questions. So if you have questions, I would like to stop here. There is a lot more to say, but we just don't have time.
We
So
would love to have you
if you have
again on the platform.
any questions,
more
I would be
time.
really happy to answer them.
Yes, 5 minutes of question and answers if you have any. We would love to have you back, Miss Asma, again with more time so that you can explain more. In the meantime, if you can put Rudolph Steiner's name in the chat box and any reading reference that you want to give for our teachers to refer to, that would be really helpful. Any questions? Nandini ma'am, may I invite you to summarize the evening? It has been wonderful listening to Asma ma'am. There was so much to learn. I'm sure a lot of things we are already doing, but good reiteration. Nandini ma'am, if you're there, please
Thank you so much.
summarize.
Yes,
Yeah.
very good evening, everyone. Very good evening, Subhi ma'am. Thank you so much. Asma ma'am, it's been an absolutely enriching evening. A lot of reinforcement of what we already do at Manav Rachna, whether it was the socio-emotional aspect or the fact that, distracting a child sometimes works wonders rather than, beating about the same topic over and over again. The significance of play can never be undermined. And can never be overemphasized also, because at Manav Rachna, that is the pedagogy that we follow in the early years, is learning through play. And all that you mentioned about drama, and so when you were talking about children pretending to be someone else, that's actually how we set up our classrooms in the early years. We have two specific centers dedicated to that. One is the Dramatic Play Center, which is more of role play. And the second is Small World Play, which allows children to enact small world enactments, whether it is talking about a family or a city or a zoo or a safari. So yes, significance of play can definitely not be undermined in the early years. Social conflict as an opportunity for learning, very important again, and I think that's one topic that an entire session can be conducted for. And of course, the 5-day program that that schedule that you shared with us, where on day one the children, the new admissions come in with the parents, just take a round and go back. And so that 5-day schedule, that is something that maybe we can give a try to and see how that works. And towards the end, Rudolph Steiner's the 4 temperaments of children, whether it is melancholic, sanguine, phlegmatic, or choleric. I think that's something we all would like to read up more on. So thank you, Surabhi ma'am, for mentioning and requesting Asma ma'am to put in a reference or some reference books in there for all of us to read. So yes, a good reinforcement for all of us and some takeaways for all of us in this, I'm sure. An enriching evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. On that note, again, from the entire Manav Rachna group, I would like to thank you for your enlightening session. We would love to have you on the platform again. There's so much to learn from you. But since you've already stepped down on the time, we should call it a day for now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, teachers, for your patient
hearing. Thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure. I'm extremely sorry that I did not have, I had put in 2-3 presentation pictures to show. I'm sorry that I was not able to put them up. There is a lot to talk on early years, and I'm so happy to hear that you have environments and you have the playway method in school, and that academics is not your focus. If I come to Delhi, I would definitely love to visit your schools. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of learning for me too. Yes, we can have future sessions. Reading is one of my passions, and we can go on and on about reading. Rudolph Steiner, trust me, is it's another world. The way Montessori is a different world, Rudolph Steiner is another world. And his insights on children and insights on temperaments, insight on instructions for teachers, it's like, wow, like always. Yes, Rudolph Steiner has written a lot of books. Unfortunately, they are not in the form of like books. They are discussions and research articles, and I will try to find a few names and give it to ma'am, and maybe the teachers can have a takeaway from it. I attend a lot of workshops, and I do a lot of exchange with different people. So, there is a lot of knowledge that you accumulate over the years. So I will definitely get back to you with names of books. I have written the name of one of the books over here, and I hope you find it helpful. Thank you so much again for having me over. I enjoyed the session as well, and I hope that your teachers had more to take away. And you're already doing so much. That's absolutely fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Asma. Thank you so much, Asma. Because you know what you talked about was the basics of early education, and it is very, very important to understand how the children learn. The basics are very, very important in the early years education. So not only uh, words and terminology, but how do children learn? And you brought in 2, 3 new insights into which you know everybody needs to focus. For example, when you talked about 3, 4 steps into how you give instructions to children, it's not giving an instruction and it is getting followed by the child. It doesn't happen that way. The child takes time, he moves in steps. So that is something I think for every teacher to imbibe, bring it to her practice in the classroom when we are dealing with the children. It's not only knowing about things, it is doing those things which are more important, because we understand that knowing in no way is equivalent to doing, right? So maybe it's a very small point, but when it comes to doing, it takes a lot of time on the part of teachers, parents, everybody to create that world for children. And what you said was through personal example and modeling your behavior again is very, very important, because children catch on to what you do. So these are not easy things, because they're very important and very small things to know. But when it comes to putting them into practice, I think each one of us will be finding fault with ourselves that at times we are not able to, right? So these things, if keep repeating them, so we stay on track and we keep giving ourselves physical reminders. Check yourself, bring in conscious checks. We adults need to bring in those conscious checks. We can go wrong at times because we are manipulative. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Asma, and I think we'll have more. And
that is why, ma'am, I think that when we become grandparents,
yes,
we are better grandparents, not because asal se zyada sood pyara, but because we have become so much wiser,
yeah.
so much more learned. We know
Yes.
so much more that even though as a Montessori teacher, as a new teacher, as a new mother, I was not able to understand my children the way I understand them now.
Yes.
So maybe if I have my grandchildren, I will be able to do a better job. And that's what always happens with all of us, right? Because it's a learning experience for all of us. And I think one of the most important thing is, like you very nicely put, that it's about doing what is right, not just knowing that this is good. It is about doing and following and practicing what you preach. And in early years, I think jitna karo kam hai, jitna bolo kam hai. So there is a lot which is supposed to be said and a lot which is supposed to be done. And I'm so happy to know that you have a different method of having, of playway, and you have activities and projects in your school. That's absolutely fantastic. I'd love to come and see it.
Definitely. Anytime you come to Faridabad or to Delhi, do make a visit to Manojna schools. And also, if you attend certain conferences, some international ones somewhere, do exchange notes with us, right? And we'll have more interactions. Thank you so much, Asma. Thank you so much, everyone who is there on the platform. All the teachers, keep it up.
Thank you so much,
and your passion.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, your spirit and passion, please keep it up. All the teachers here. Thank you so much. We'll meet for another EduCon with a new topic. Thank you. Thank you, Asma. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, teachers. Good evening to all of you. You may leave.